Hello out there to everyone at the liveactionanime.org forums. I'm Thrash Till Death, and this is the second part of the post-Christmas review special, where we're going to be looking at some of the biggest releases of the 2009 anime market. And today, that is going to be Studio Bones' 26-episode series, Darker Than Black. Darker Than Black, for those of you uninitiated, is a post-cyberpunk, semi-supernatural thriller set in a sort of near-future environment where we're informed that 10 years prior to the beginning of the story, there was an incident where an area in Tokyo known as Hell's Gate appeared, which is a sort of zone of it's like the Twilight Zone where reality begins warping back on itself and no one who ventures into it ever comes out alive, that sort of thing. And in concurrence with the emergence of this new region, the stars in the night sky have been replaced with fake stars, and the world has seen the emergence of this new being known as contractors, who are ordinary people who discover the emergence of strange powers in themselves, strange superpowers, which when they get used have to be counteracted by paying some sort of price, and this price can be something sort of completely arbitrary, anything from breaking your own fingers to writing bad poetry or drinking beer. It's kind of bizarre, kind of unexplained, and the series basically just throws us into this environment in medias res, where we've got all sorts of organizations who are using contractors against each other, trying to gather information on Hell's Gate and trying to sort of gain political one-upmanship over one another by means of using these contractors and the knowledge of Hell's Gate. The story gives us the environment of Tokyo, which obviously is sort of the hotbed for this political competition between the world's intelligence agencies, because that's where Hell's Gate is. And we get introduced to this organization known as the Syndicate, whose motives are unclear, who have a particularly skilled contractor working for them named Hay, whose past is unclear, although he seems to have been involved in an incident in South America which saw a similar gate appear as the one to Hell's Gate in Tokyo, where a massive war was fought and a massive tract of land was destroyed. The series takes place over sort of two episodic arcs, and it gradually reveals the world and the characters' motivations to us after tossing us in medias res, which is kind of a responsible way of doing things. It never sort of leans too heavily on expository means of imparting information about the characters or their world to us. It's always sort of wrapped up in episodic arcs, and these arcs usually involve some sort of power play between two rival factions, usually the Syndicate getting involved in the middle, trying to lay their hands on some sort of artifact to do with Hell's Gate or something like that. And we get introduced to a range of recurring characters. Kirihara, who's sort of a local Japanese policewoman who's involved in sort of special operations against contractors. We've got November 11th, who's an agent working for MI6. All sorts of interesting figures whose motivations are never usually entirely clear, and often are left unclear even unto the end of the series. Now, Darker Than Black it definitely sort of reminds, in a way, of Witch Hunter Robin, which was a series that dealt with similar sort of themes of people with arbitrarily occurring superpowers and the sort of efforts made by organizations to either exploit them or to cover them up. And while I didn't like Witch Hunter Robin, I think Darker Than Black is probably an attempt to do that same sort of idea and execute it more competently, because I thought Witch Hunter Robin was awful ham-handed, which Darker Than Black most certainly isn't. It's very well written for the most part. The characters are quite well-rounded and they're organically developed. The world is quite nicely obfuscated, the causes of all the sort of effects that have led to the creation of places like Hell's Gate and the Contractors. but at the same time it's also quite immersive and quite compelling to see just get revealed what all these organizations' motivations actually are, and just the nature of how he's passed. All sorts of opposing little bits of intrigue that are just sort of gradually unfurled as the series goes on. It's very much a sign-in show in that regard, in that characterization and gradual narrative development, gradual and responsible narrative development, are sort of the crux of the appeal of the series, rather than sort of wall-to-wall action scenes. If I've got any criticism of Darker Than Black, and I do, because it's a flawed show in spite of its strengths, it does have a lot of high-profile staff working on it. This is definitely a high-profile production. The animation is very smooth and fluid. The score by Yoko Kanno is obviously, well, a Yoko Kanno score, you know, it's self-explanatory. Of course it's going to be great. If I'm